Thank you for staying with Citizen Extra. My name is Lillian Muli, and we continue with news shaping the day now. And the JSE has told of President Uhuru Kenyatta for linking Chief Justice David Maraga's post to the Kisii community. President Uhuru Kenyatta is quoted as saying that the appointment of the Chief Justice had Kisii County's interests at heart. With me in studio this morning is Richard Onyonka. He's MP Kitutu Churches South. Also with us this morning is Duncan Omari. He is a lawyer. Gentlemen, good morning and thank you for joining us on Citizen Extra. I want to begin with the fact that the President made these remarks over 3 weeks ago, and we are only now getting a response on this from the Chief Justice. Why do you think this has taken so long? I will make a correction. Our second guest this morning is Duncan Okach, and he will also be joining us in this conversation. Let me start with you, Richard Onyonka, MP Kitutu Churches South. Why are we only getting a response 3 weeks into this?
Well, I think, to me, I wouldn't have handled it differently from the way it's been handled right now. The reason is that, one, the Judicial Service Commission has got its own calendar, and I believe that I don't think the statement that the President made would have made them rush through so that they could then come and debunk or deny that what the President said was true or not. I believe that they decided to do it now because, one, they had to sit amongst themselves, do consultations just to make sure that the position which they are going to take is a correct position. And I think, to me, the position they have taken is a correct one. That, one, the Judicial Service Commission is a creation of the Constitution. The judiciary is supposed to be an independent institution within our governing structures. And that Justice Maraga is a man who actually applied for a job, got that job on his qualifications, and we saw it publicly being handled. He went through the normal vetting that came all the way to Parliament through JLAC, and finally Parliament voted for him. And for me, I'm happy that Justice Maraga and even the JSC has stated very clearly that that position was never given to Maraga because he happened to be a member of the Kisii community, and therefore it was as a wadi or a president of the Kisii community. I just think the President...
As a region, was there a political hand in the appointment of the Chief Justice as a region to these appointments, and not only his, but of other cases, that have been given respective appointments? Do they send a message of political goodwill?
I think the President would want the country to believe. In fact, let me revert that. The President would want the Kisii community to believe that he did the community a favor by making sure that Justice Maraga became the CJ. The truth is, what I'm saying is that you saw the vetting, first of all, the recruitment, the vetting through Parliament. You saw Justice Maraga defending himself on the floor of the House, on the floor at the committee. And to me and to many people in the Kisii community, they believe Justice Maraga actually won the seat on merit. Whether the President wants to give himself credit for having given, quote-unquote, Justice Maraga this very plum position, therefore the Kisii community should vote for Jubilee, for me, it's neither here nor there. My feeling is that, to a large extent, yes, from the perspective that a majority of the members of the JLAC committee, a majority of the members of Parliament, Jubilee has the largest number of members of Parliament, and if the Jubilee had called its troops in Parliament to reject the report on Justice Maraga, they could most probably have done it. But that would have been a very unpopular decision. And I think, to a large extent, the President has created a dispute on Justice Maraga's appointment, and I'm happy that Justice Maraga and the Judicial Service Commission have made their position very clear, and they should leave that matter to rest.
Duncan, let me come to you over the independence of the judiciary and where such statements by the President leave the judiciary as regards its independence. In a statement here published by the Chief Justice himself, he says that such statements paint the judiciary as partisan?
Lillian, my sentiments will actually show that I'm not agreeing with Mheshimiwa here. And the reason for that is that the president's statements are not statements that will just be taken as ordinary statements by any mwananchi. This is the President of the Republic, and we know the process that that is enshrined in the Constitution in terms of coming up with the Chief Justice or the Deputy Chief Justice or any judge for that matter. When the President comes out and says that he actually gave the Chief Justice this job, basically as a reward to the KISUMU community, a lot of things come to mind. And I will tell you one thing for a fact, Lillian, is that during that particular process, word in the corridors of justice and everywhere was that actually the President was supporting the current Chief Justice. Actually, there were endeavors which were being made to ensure that he actually ascends into that seat. And people actually read a lot in terms of when Justice Maraga had to, in a rush, deliver the committee's decision in as far as Justice Mutava is concerned. And he actually did that, I think, within a week before the official naming came out. And the problem we have with that is not even the President's statements alone. It actually tells us to now interrogate the JSC very critically, because they are the persons who have been mandated by the Constitution, and the Constitution itself says that the process that they will actually entail competitiveness and fairness, and nothing but that. Therefore, when the President comes and says out in public that I actually had a hand, it actually tells us to now interrogate the JSC commissioners, and actually what he's telling us is that these JSC commissioners are not impartial for even a second. It's a very serious statement, knowing that the Chief Justice is the head of the Supreme Court. If there's any issue in terms of an election petition, the President becomes a party before this particular court. Therefore, what this actually tells us is, if the JSC is actually not independent and would actually be singing in the tunes of a president, and the JSC is mandated to actually give us the names of Supreme Court judges, all of them, and the law is very clear that once they have actually nominated these particular individuals, the President must appoint. Subject maybe for the Chief Justice and Deputy, their names must go to Parliament. But Parliament...
Duncan there disagreed with you. What's your response to his thoughts on the JSC's stand in all of this?
My opposition is that I would want to inform Duncan that, number one, if you look at the way the appointments were done, he doesn't have, even though he's talking about the corridors of power or the corridors in Parliament discussing how Justice Maraga was going to be appointed, I can tell him that yes, many of us who come from the KISUMU community, after Maraga's name came in, actually said, I think he's our son of the soil, let us encourage other members to try and vote for him. We are not sure. I cannot sit here and say that I was aware that President Uhuru was supporting Justice Maraga. What I know is we didn't get any information telling us that President Uhuru was against Justice Maraga getting the job. Secondly, I want Duncan to understand this. Kenya is a very political country. I really want him to look at everything. I mean, the other day, the President went to Mombasa and said Governor Joho had most probably been given 40 billion for him to do, from the revenue allocation bills in Parliament, only for it to be discovered later that the amount of money was actually much less than that. What I'm saying is, even when the President of a country, and the President of Uhuru has said a few things sometimes which don't end up being factual, in Kenya, most of the things we deal with, even in our economy, we deal with it politically, even on social issues, even the issue of the universities that you've just been discussing here. Go and touch a member of a certain community where a university has been opened up, and tell the community that this son of the soil is not able, he doesn't have the capacity. In fact, him having been picked for this job is going to be destructive to the community's interests. And they'll tell you, how dare you? I mean, we politicize everything. My position right now is that Uhuru's comments about Justice Maraga was purely political.
Okach, I want to come to you on this one. The State House has not come out to clarify what the president said, and therefore this, seemingly just hanging out there. Nobody really knows whether this was a political statement, and the constitutional role of the head of state on the appointment of the Chief Justice.
Lillian, the constitutional role of the president to appoint the Chief Justice is clear, in that once the JSC has come out with a name, they will actually forward it to Parliament, and once Parliament has approved, the president must appoint. He doesn't have any discretion there. But what is actually alarming us is what you've actually indicated, that there is no clarification that has been given by State House itself, by the president himself. Yesterday he had a perfect opportunity to clarify that. He didn't. But more importantly, what worries me most is is sentiments of Kenyans like Mheshimiwa, whereby they think that just because it's a political statement aimed at the judiciary, it's business as usual. As a lawyer, and even just as an ordinary Kenyan, I will actually say that when politics gets its way into the judiciary, that is the end of it. There's a reason why the judiciary is in Chapter 11, after the executive and legislature. It is the last point where you can actually go and solve your disputes. And they should make their decisions impartially, not influenced by politics, not influenced by tribe. In actual sense, when they sit there, there's no issue about tribe, there's no issue about politics, there's no issue about party affiliations. It's about the law. And that is why the appointment process, the framers of the Constitution were very, very clear that in the appointment process, the JSC, pursuant to Article 171, must actually factor in two basic principles: competitiveness, openness. And that is the basic of it. No one should actually be able to influence. But if the president says in public that I influence, then I think myself and Mheshimiwa and yourself, Lillian, we should be a worried lot.
Okay, I want to come to you, Richard Onyonka,
yes.
on, this is a political year. We're only 3 months to the polls. Yes. The statements by the president and indeed the JSC now responding 3 weeks after the president's statements, does this augur well for a judiciary that must be seen as independent even ahead of the polls?
I will agree with my brother here that yes, I think the president making that comment in the strictest sense from the legal perspective, from the constitutional perspective, it was actually a wrong statement. But at the same time, the point I'm raising is that even when he made that statement, because we have Kenya is a country where everything that is going on right now between this month and most probably until the end of September this year, it is a political season. We are going to have a lot of toxicity. I mean, I'm pleading with my brother here that the comment he's making, that there's a likelihood that Justice Maraga is then, because he may be the one who's going to look at if there's a petition in case President Uhuru and whoever that NASA is going to have as a candidate, this matter comes to the Supreme Court, that because President Uhuru has actually made the comment about him having helped, quote unquote, Justice Maraga to become the CJ, then he will come out and make a legal decision which is going to be influenced or which is going to be favoring President Uhuru. To me, I think that is going for the long haul. I use this, Lillian. You remember in the last elections, the Justice Willie Mutunga, who was known to be a liberal judge, a liberal justice, somebody who was known to be friends with the opposition, was expected actually to have ruled in favor of Prime Minister Raila Odinga. And what happened when there wasn't even a dissenting view from the bench? Even Justice Mutunga, who everybody had thought would actually stand up alone and maybe with somebody else and say, listen, we feel that we didn't get enough evidence on the case that has been brought to this court because of the petition that has been filed. We feel that the election was not free and fair. We feel that there was a lot of evidence which has been left out, even for the sake of just raising the basic legal issue which came up was why was the evidence not acceptable. Ended up actually agreeing with the rest of the bench. So I don't think that even if President Uhuru, quote unquote, may have made Justice Maraga the Chief Justice, that Justice Maraga will end up making a ruling which would favor Uhuru per se, depending on what the circumstances are going to be. I think we are overstretching it, and it might end up, you see, these are the issues that come up in Kenya, that you will find if the left side, like us who are in the opposition, if we take a position on raising critical matters pertaining to the Kenyan elections, and we make comments about those elections, at the same time you're going to have the right, which is the JP team, coming up and also making comments. It begins to create a level of discontent and a level of mistrust, which is leading towards a certain narrative. Right now, my honest feeling is that let us not go that route. Let us not assume that even when President Uhuru made the comment, and the Judicial Service Commission has come out very strongly. In fact, the comments that they have brought, according to me, are really lashing out at the President. And it's very good that the Judicial Service Commission has come out to make that statement. And Justice Maraga himself sits in that Judicial Service Commission. If he felt that he had gotten a favor from President Uhuru, I don't think he himself would have allowed the Judicial Service Commission to make a comment like they did.
Duncan, your final thoughts as we close this conversation, and not only on the statement on the head of state, rather the sentiments on the head of state as regards the appointment of Chief Justice Maraga, but also on his re-election bid, and whether we see a possible scenario where he will be putting across his bid by pegging it on appointments across 42 tribes.
Lillian, what comes out, and in legal parlance we always say that about justice is justice must not only be done, it must be manifestly be seen to be done. And perception is very key, such that judges recuse themselves when there's a perception that there will be bias. So it doesn't mean that Justice Maraga must actually be on one side. But when there's a perception that Justice Maraga or any other judge, for one reason or another, may be influenced by other exterior aspects, then it actually means that there's already doubt, and that is failure of the judiciary. And that's the basic issue around that. But more importantly,
but away from the judiciary, there have been also other appointments, and that's why I'm talking about appointments across 42 tribes and not just in the judiciary.
More importantly, Lillian, the issue of appointments are governed by the Constitution, and the Constitution says that the President is mandated to actually spread out the national cake throughout, and that is why tribe will not actually matter, because it must go to each and every region. But that cannot be used as a political tool to actually gain, because that is now where we misuse this particular power, and that's where you'll find that people will actually fight to actually get the presidency. It should actually be something that, regardless of whoever gets this particular post, these are all your children, you'll spread it to them, and it is not a reward mechanism.
Richard Onyonka, MP Kitutu Chacha South, and Duncan Okach, he's an analyst with us in studio. He's also a lawyer of the High Court. We thank you very much for your time this morning, gentlemen. We are now crossing over to Kisumu County, where Sam Ogina is on standby with Onyango Olo. We'll also be looking at other news shaping the day there. Sam Ogina?
Well, thank you so much, Lillian Muli at the Communications Center. Indeed, we are coming to you from KISUMU Hotel, which is in Kisumu County, the heart of Kisumu County. And we're being informed that the Board of Management for Maseno School, the entire board has actually resigned in protest of the interdiction of the former head teacher, that is Paul Otula. Just saying that the current head teacher who has been posted there has a tainted past. And for that particular matter, they will not be sitting or accommodating the new head teacher. So as much they have resigned, the board of Maseno University has resigned. Not Maseno University, the board of management for Maseno School has resigned. But of course, we'll keep you posted on what happens. Of course, the board chair, there is Kerry Oreg, Engineer Kerry Oreg, will be speaking to us later on in the day. We just confirmed that interview with you, and once we get hold of him, of course, we'll relate to you the reasons why they feel that they cannot accommodate the new head teacher. But joining me here today is former TNA Secretary General Onyango Olo. He will be contesting for the Kisumu Central, that is the township where we are. He'll be contesting for that particular seat on an ODM ticket. First things first, you are a very vibrant TNA Secretary General, actually a firebrand then. Why the defection?
Oh, thank you so much. Politics is dynamic, and sometimes you've got to shift gears to move at the required speed. It became pertinent that if I were to advance my politics beyond being the Secretary General of the National Alliance, then I had to shift gears. Besides that, I did explain in great details reasons that made it untenable my continued stay in the Jubilee fraternity. At my age, I remember me telling people I would not like to be saddled in my old age with corruption-related issues when my grandchildren and future Kenyan generations would have to ask me, as the Secretary General and as a senior member of the party, what did you do when your country was being overburdened with corruption issues? You must have taken part in them. I decided to call it quit when it became clear that the side that had been more pronounced in corruption matters had taken the better part of the party. So I had to leave and find a new home where probably I could advance my political careers, and in all honesty, where I could in earnest say sorry to Kenyans for whatever has been happening, especially in relation to corruption in the government.
But they say that all politics is local, and if you are to be elected in Kisumu, then it will only be prudent that you find a vehicle that is acceptable. Is that so?
Did I have to be elected in Kisumu? I could have run in Embakasi, I could have run in Mathare, I could have run anywhere in Nairobi. Remember, I've spent much of my time actually in Nairobi than in Kisumu. So if it was about politics, and my party was solidly behind me at that time, if it was a question of just wanting to go to parliament, of advancing my political career, nothing would have stopped me from getting my party behind me in a constituency in Nairobi, and I'm sure I would have arrived home and dry. But here is a situation that you arrive home and dry, but you have to carry that burden of having presided over a corrupt regime, a corrupt party that refused to change with the demands of the people, demands of the time. So I decided to come to ODM. And I have made it clearly, even up to the time that I was coming to the ODM fraternity, I had no slightest idea that I would be asked to run. I had joined ODM as a card-paying member who paid 20 shillings to be a member of the party. But when I was received in this lakeside town, the inhabitants insisted that they wanted me to run. And remember, this is my birthplace. So I said, why not? When your people call upon you to offer leadership, I'd offered it elsewhere, I could offer it here. Yes. But
it appeared that you were gradually being sidelined from not just TNA but the Jubilee administration, and probably this is what made you bolt out from Jubilee.
I've heard that assertion now and again, but I've never found anything farthest from the truth. Look at it this way. When our parties were merged, we were 13 political parties. Even though about 11 ended up executing the merger instrument. Did I expect the party to have 13 secretary generals or to have 13 national chairmen? And in any event, who amongst those officials of 13 political parties was ever retained? So it is incorrect to say that that alone, unless I was treating myself, considering myself to be a super secretary general, to be so special, it would be quite erroneous to think of me having left the fraternity because I did not get a position. And besides, let's face it, the government has got quite a number of appointments that could have been available for me if I wanted.
Okay. Yes, now you're running for the Kisumu Central against the incoming, that is Ken Okoth. How is that contest? Ken Obura. How is the contest?
It is wonderful. It is beyond what I was expecting. I'd expected that I would go through a very, very tough situation. But I arrived at a situation to find that the people had already a huge disconnect with their member of parliament. You remember a few weeks ago he was stoned and literally chased like a cat all over the city. So by the time I was coming, there was already like the space was available for someone to occupy. So it has been smooth going, but quite involving. As you can see, my voice, I'm losing my voice a bit, because within 2 months I have to reach all the corners of the constituency. But I can tell you, it is simply beyond expectation. Our people are keen on new leadership. They want to know what best I can do for them, more so as good as maybe what I performed while I was in TNA.
Well, thank you so much. That is Onyango Lo, and I wish you all the best in your campaign trail.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you so much. That is Onyango Lo, the former TNA Secretary General. Now he will be contesting for the Kisumu Central ODM ticket for the parliamentary seat in Kisumu Central. And as I informed you earlier, the Board of Management for Maseno School has resigned, and will be keeping you posted on the reasons why the entire board actually decided to resign. The board chair, actually, that is Engineer Kerio Rege, confirming that he will be granting us an interview, and exactly what has transpired, why they feel that their continued stay at the board is untenable. This coming against the backdrop of the interdiction of the former principal, that is Paul Watula, over claims of sodomy in that particular high school. We'll be keeping you posted on exactly what transpires on the other side of town in Maseno School. Back to you, Lillian, in studio.
Sam Wagina, thank you for that. Sam Wagina is coming to us from Kisumu County. Back here in the county, medical marijuana reform is quickly spreading to countries in every continent, and now the wind of change has reached the Republic of Kenya. The Kenyan Senate has been petitioned by Gwada Ogot, a writer and political analyst, to decriminalize marijuana for personal use and legalize it for medical and industrial purposes. The Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Control Act of 1994 classifies the possession, sale, growing and distribution of marijuana as illegal. With us in studio this morning, like I said, is Gwada Ogot. He's a writer, also a political analyst. Good morning. And also with us is Duncan Okach, once again with us in this conversation, advocate of the High Court. I want to begin with you, Gwada. What benefits do you foresee coming out of the legalization of marijuana? You talk about social and economic gains.
Thank you, Lillian. I think first, the name marijuana, we need to move away from the name marijuana because it refers to a specific species of the cannabis sativa family. There are three species within the cannabis sativa family. One is cannabis sativa, which is industrial hemp. The second is cannabis indica forma, which is marijuana. And then there's a third, which is cannabis ruderalis, which is really exclusively found in Russia, and is not available. It doesn't have a lot of medicinal values. Now, in terms of industrial hemp, the benefits are wide. One, industrial hemp makes cheaper paper than we will not need to cut trees because it makes cheaper paper material. Two, industrial hemp has hemp oil, which has been known to fuel cars. The same hemp oil has been known to have medicinal value. Then there is hemp oil that can also be used to cook. Hemp also produces fibers, the tough fibers that are stronger than sisal. And third, hemp also produces building material. It's huge. It's an industry unto itself.
And you talk about multiple documented health benefits. Which are these?
Health benefits. That specifically targets cannabis indica forma, which is that's the marijuana. That has a specific component which is called delta 9 THC. And it so far it is known to have to be effective against close to over 600 diseases. One of them being cancer, measles, smallpox, Alzheimer's. There are many, and that is why you find that just over the last 1 month alone, in the month of March, we have had Germany, Israel, Argentina, South Africa, and one more, I think, Philippines, legalizing in just 1 month.
So, Gwada, you talk about different types or categories, if you like.
Yes.
Which one of these would you like the government to legalize?
I think the government should legalize both, or cannabis sativa for its industrial uses and cannabis indica for its medicinal values, and that's where everybody's focusing on both of them.
Okay, before I talk to Duncan on this, we do know that bang, as it's popularly known here in the country, has been abused, and it does have its side effects. But your petition also says that anyone currently serving jail terms for offenses related to marijuana should be set free.
Yes.
Why?
Why they should be set free is that as a person, when I think the law was based on ignorance, one, because it generalizes the cannabis sativa and the species around it. But all of them have different components, different properties. That's why the U.S. law is very clear that there's a distinction between cannabis sativa and cannabis indica forma. They distinguish between the two. So you cannot generalize them and say that if you're caught with any member of this family, the assumption then is that the components and the properties in are uniform across the board, the impacts are uniform across the board, and the uses are uniform across the board. And two, in this case, you find that the law is actually aggravating people. These people have not committed any crime against a person, or neither committed any crime against a plant or anybody's property for that matter. And the last part is spiritual. We have over 430,000 plant species across the world. I don't see why anybody should come here and tell me that one is particularly legal. And then the next part is linguistic and cultural. In my mother tongue, which is Luo, we are clear that this is medicine. We call it yap. In Luhia, which is also my mother tongue, we say that this is Omsara, which is medicine. So the question is, when a young Gentile language called English comes and forbids me to use this thing because...
Yeah, but that is only relative to some communities. In some communities like mine, there's no word for it.
There's no word for it because there are certain communities, African communities, that were scientific. Certain African communities, their languages were used for scientific and liturgical instruction, not all. Yes,
okay,
and that's why
I'll be coming back to you, Gwada. Yes. Duncan Okach is an advocate of the High Court. And Duncan, if Gwada's petition is successful, cannabis or bang will be removed from the list of Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act of 1994. He says the criminalization of bang is what leads to its abuse.
Lillian, actually, if this particular petition goes through, the effect is exactly what you have indicated. It will be just legalizing the use of bang, and that is why, to me, after that, there should be a way of regularization or actually moderating its use, because we always know that anything can be abused, and if it is abused, that's where you find the negative consequences or effects. And as such, I will be very keen to know whether whether Gwada has actually put that element of regularization after that. And if it's not there, before his petition goes through, I think Parliament should actually focus much on that.
Yeah, I think Gwada should respond to that. Gwada, have you put anything there? Is there a clause on regularization and just how much of it should be consumed?
What I put in my petition was the inclusion of, or the creation of, a Cannabis Sativa Board of Kenya that would then work on regulation. And the petition is very strong on regulation, and that's a highlight, and that's why we put in, we need a structure to do this. The structure should include people from all corners of, people with different capacities who are able to push this forward, and that's a key point of this petition.
So you want a Cannabis Sativa Board to be established to oversee the production and distribution of weed?
The entire gambit around it.
For medicinal use or for... Across
the board. Where it's the board that will determine what, but the key factors here are industrial and medical, and the Cannabis Sativa Board should be able to handle all that. There has to be a proper structure to do this, because what we're doing is, this is not an ad hoc thing that we're doing, and neither are we setting precedents, because if over 40 countries have legalized in the last 5 years,